The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom.
That the nation shall have a new birth of freedom.
I'm aware that there's still some who would question or even justify the offense of 9/11. But let us be clear. Al-Qaeda killed nearly 3,000 people on that day. The victims were innocent men, women, and children from America and many other nations who had done nothing to harm anybody. And yet Al-Qaeda chose to ruthlessly murder these people, claimed credit for the attack, and even now states their determination to kill on a massive scale. They have affiliates in many countries and are trying to expand their reach. These are not opinions to be debated. These are facts to be dealt with. These are not opinions to be debated. These are facts.
We also have a history of kind of moving in and out of Pakistan. I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan, in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen, and let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated, they lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest. So we then left Pakistan. We said, okay, fine, you deal with the stingers that we've left all over your country. You deal with the mines that are along the border. And by the way, we don't want to have anything to do with you. In fact, we're sanctioning you. So we stopped dealing with the Pakistani military and with ISI, and we now are making up for a lot of lost time.
Good evening, everybody. President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis.
How much does America want to invest around the world? We're seeing a new world order now being built, a post-World War II world order. And I don't think America can retreat from that. I think we have to balance and adapt and adjust to the realities and the currents of this new world order.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
The problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
Within the next 4 years, we will see the emergence of a new international order.
The beginning of a new international order.
But today, with Asia already outproducing Europe, India and China are clearly becoming part of our new order.
So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges.
I think its task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions or on so global a scale. Nor has any previous order had to combine the attributes of the historic balance of power system with global democratic opinion and the exploding technology of the contemporary period.
And the president outlined his vision of a new world order in which the U.S. would participate fully.
We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
So I see a world order in the future with a multipolar world order.
And one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
Well, during the conflict with Saddam Hussein, which he handled so superbly in a short-term sense, but he kept talking about a new world order. And then President Bush, at the end of that war, promised he would give 4 graduation addresses, 4 commencement addresses, describing that new world order and what America's role was going to be in it. It turned out he gave one of those addresses and canceled the other 3 and talked about something else. That's what, because they weren't ready yet.
That in fact we're all going to have to give up a little bit of our sovereignty in order to make the world work.
And I strongly believe India will be a central actor in the new world order.
And this present window of opportunity during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built will not be here for too long. Already there are powerful forces at work that threaten to destroy all of our hopes and efforts to erect an enduring structure of global cooperation.
Are you optimistic a global system can happen from what we've heard so far?
It could happen, and in fact it's in the works.
But sir, just one thing, we could go on about how your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy. And that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting the economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
let me just say something to all my conspiracy-oriented friends on the right who think I'm planning to unleash some secret agenda. You're absolutely right. Throughout human history, societies have grappled with fundamental questions of how to organize themselves, the proper relationship between the individual and the state, the best means to resolve inevitable conflicts between states. And it was here in Europe, through centuries of struggle, through war and enlightenment, repression and revolution, that a particular set of ideals began to emerge. The belief that through conscience and free will, each of us has the right to live as we choose. The belief that power is derived from the consent of the governed, and that laws and institutions should be established to protect that understanding. And those ideas eventually inspired a band of colonialists across an ocean. And they wrote them into the founding documents that still guide America today, including the simple truth that all men and women are created equal. But those ideals have also been tested here in Europe and around the world. Those ideals have often been threatened by an older, more traditional view of power. This alternative vision argues that ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs, that order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign. – 2014 was the planet's warmest year on record. Now, one year doesn't make a trend, but this does. 14 of the 15 warmest years on record have all fallen in the first 15 years of this century. I've heard some folks try to dodge the evidence by saying they're not scientists, that we don't have enough information to act. Well, I'm not a scientist either. But you know what? I know a lot of really good scientists at NASA and at NOAA and at our major universities. And the best scientists in the world are all telling us that our activities are changing the climate. And if we don't act forcefully, we'll continue to see rising oceans, longer, hotter heat waves, dangerous droughts and floods, and massive disruptions that can trigger greater migration and conflict and hunger around the globe. The Pentagon says that climate change poses immediate risks to our national security. We should act like it.
This is the shuttle's fuel tank. It may only be 130 miles to space, but to cover that distance, the engines will use 500,000 gallons of fuel, and that works out at 2 feet to the gallon. Despite the cost, however, NASA does need to test these engines once in a while. So they built this place in the wetlands of Mississippi. The first thing they installed was a huge loudspeaker, through which they played white noise to simulate the sound of a rocket. They then sent a number of trucks in different directions out into the wilderness, and the drivers were ordered to stop when the noise levels became acceptable. This gave them an imaginary boundary line, and anyone living on the inside of it was offered a simple choice. Stay, and you'll never hear another television program as long as you live. Or take the NASA shilling and get out. No one stayed, and NASA ended up with exactly what it wanted. 125,000 acres of nothing. They even had to move 5 cemeteries, because the noise they were planning on making would wake the dead. Don't worry if you can't hear what I'm saying. I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And, as it turns out, the cleanest. Now, the most amazing thing is that that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain. I told you! It's raining! That's unbelievable! Oh, NASA's playing God! It's making its own weather!
My name's Jasper Kirkby. I'm a particle physicist. A collaboration, which I lead, built this cloud chamber and built an experiment called Cloud. And we're doing this in the laboratory at CERN because here we can do everything under completely controlled conditions. Cloud has 2 very important goals. One is we want to figure out how cloudy was the pre-industrial atmosphere. And to do that, we need to measure the fundamental processes that are responsible for the formation of aerosol in the atmosphere and the clouds that they eventually seed. The only way to figure out the cloudiness is to make these lab experiments and then to run computer models based on sound physics and chemistry measurements. So here we are underneath the cloud chamber. That's the chamber itself. It's a 3-meter stainless steel chamber. And what you can see here is the lower manhole cover. And underneath the manhole cover are a set of valves. This is where we bring in all the different gases, the air, humidified air, ozone, various trace gases, because what we do inside the chamber is we recreate a parcel of the atmosphere. This is actually the thermal housing that surrounds the cloud chamber. The chamber itself is inside. When we're ready, we start the experiment typically by turning on ultraviolet lights, which are actually injected through a fiber optic system in the top of the chamber. And that simulates the sunlight. It launches some chemical reactions, and then we basically cook the contents of the chamber over the next few hours and see what these vapors produce. Normally we have instruments attached to these. Everyone has an instrument, a very sensitive state-of-the-art mass spectrometer and other instruments, which continuously samples the contents of the chamber. And our second goal is to understand what could be the mechanism for so-called solar climate variability, which affects the cosmic rays on Earth and seems to impact the climate, certainly in the pre-industrial times. And this is where the CERN beam comes in, because the CERN beam is a beautiful artificial source of cosmic rays, and we vary the intensity of the CERN beam to see how processes change inside the cloud chamber behind me. What you see here is 4 large pipes emerging from the top of the cloud chamber, and each one has a valve. This is a big regulation valve. And what we do is we use these valves to actually form clouds, liquid or ice clouds inside the cloud chamber. And we do that by, first of all, raising the pressure a few hundred millibars inside the chamber, making the air very humid, and then we drop the pressure in a very controlled way using these valves, and that simulates a rising air parcel in the atmosphere, which forms a cloud. And in this way we can maintain a cloud inside the cloud chamber for 10 minutes or so, and during that time we change the particle beam going through the cloud from the CERN accelerator and look at direct effects of the CERN particle beam on the clouds themselves. I'm totally confident we'll be able to answer the question after a few more years exactly whether or not cosmic rays do affect the climate in a significant way.
Europe's premier research lab, CERN, is celebrating its 60th birthday and the foundation of an establishment that in many ways drew up the blueprint for European cooperation. CERN's list of successes goes from inventing touchscreens, medical imaging and the internet to the more esoteric pure physics most people normally associate with CERN and its huge arrays of particle accelerators and colliders. General Director Rolf Höhe began the ceremonies under the banner 60 Years of Science for Peace.
It's amazing to see how scientists and engineers from countries which are normally not at ease with each other can work together, can speak with each other, can celebrate with each other. And I think that should be a model for everybody.
But with the Higgs boson all but nailed, where next for CERN? What are its future fields of study?
With the famous Higgs boson, we have just closed our standard model, which merely describes 5% of the universe. 95% of the universe are dark matter, dark energy. To my mind, it's high time to enter into the dark universe, and that would be one of the major goals for the near future.
For the past 60 years, CERN has not only revolutionized our scientific knowledge, but it's also created successful models of coexistence between different cultures and goal sharing.
Dal CERN di Ginevra, per Euronews, Claudio Rosmino.